All right, ladies. So hi. When I left you last time, we had just talked about the Bootstrap grid system. We talked about how that's used to create different layouts on different screen sizes, and we even went through and planned out a layout for a web page according to those 4 different screen sizes. And so we said, okay, if we have 3 sections, how big do we want it to be on a cell phone, on a tablet, on a small computer, and on a larger computer screen? And so just to kind of refresh your memory, whenever we are getting ready to put these different layout styles into HTML, the way we're going to do that is with a class. And so we're going to take whatever section that we want to be a specific size, and we're going to give that section or that div a class. And the classes that produce the layouts that we want are made up of 3 pieces. It starts with call for column, the screen size, and then however many columns we want that div or that section to take up. And so, for example, call mid 6 would tell that div on a medium screen size to take up 6 columns. And then that's why when we were writing this out, we were kind of practicing that in our design. And it's a really good idea when you're designing to start writing those out, because that will help you when we get to coding. And so what I'm going to do today is show you how to code that and how to actually put those designs into your HTML so that the web page actually has that layout. Okay, and so yeah, these are just a few more examples of, we could have a section that takes up 6 columns on a large screen or 12 columns on a small screen, etc. Okay, and so what we're going to be working with is that web page that we were looking at a couple tutorials ago with our basic Bootstrap classes applied to it. And we are going to need to have 3 different sections in here. Okay, so this is going to need to be its own grouped together, this is going to need to be grouped together, and this is going to need to be grouped together. And so in the code, how we're going to have to do that, so let me bring it over here, is this heading and paragraph will need to be grouped together inside of one div. This heading and paragraph are going to need to be grouped together inside of a div. And this heading and paragraph will need to be grouped together inside of a div. And so I'm going to go ahead and type those divs in right now, and then we can worry about what comes next. So here we go. Around the heading 1 and paragraph 1, I'm going to add a div. We'll add classes in just a second. And I'm going to put the closing div down here. And again, I kind of recommend that you indent whenever you're nesting elements. You're putting like a heading inside of a div, that we indent those 1 tab over to help visually distinguish what is inside of what. And so then I'm going to do the same thing. Add a div here. And a div around the last one. And then I'm going to make this tab, add a little space, make this tab, add a little space. And at this point, I have 1 div with the first group, a 2nd div with the 2nd group, and a 3rd div with the 2nd group. And at any time, feel free to pause and catch up. But if we go ahead and look at our design, that's going to get us started in knowing how we want to add these classes. And so if we look at the first section, which is going to be this first heading and paragraph, in my design, I represented that with blue. Okay, and so my blue, when it's an extra small, I want to take up 12. When it's small, I want it to be 6. Medium is 4, and large is 3. And so to that div, in that section, we are going to need to add all 4 of those classes. Okay, call x small 12, call small 6, call mid 4, call large 3. Okay, and just to remind you, so I'm going to go ahead and go up to that first one, and I'm going to start typing that in. Class equals. Okay, I'm going to start with the first one, column, extra small, 12. By default, if you don't put any classes on a section or on an element, by default that element will take up all 12. So technically we could probably leave off column extra small 12, but for thoroughness, I'm going to include it, and so that I have it, my design matches my code. Just to remind you, if you need to add more than one class to something, all you have to do is separate those class names by spaces. Okay, so I'm not gonna come in and like put another class equals, because that attribute would overwrite the first one. I am only going to separate those classes by spaces, and all the classes need to go inside of the quotation marks. So my next one is going to be column small and 6. Let's see, 12, 6, medium 4, and large 3. So then I'm going to have column medium 4 and column large 3. There we go. And so now I have a layout for the extra small, the medium, and the large. And that is really awesome. Now, something that you really need to do is, we've talked a lot about columns, but when we're doing this in Bootstrap, we actually need to include one more type of div. Not only do I need a div to surround like the blue section, the red section, the green section, I actually need one more div that's going to be used to surround the entire row. Okay, and so if you look at your largest screen size, or you look at the screen size that has the most columns or the most sections side by side, the things that are next to each other, like this, like these 3 things, that needs to be grouped together into a row. Okay, and this is going to help Bootstrap keep the correct, to keep things. Basically, the rows will clear from other rows, and so it's going to keep like this section from accidentally moving up where it shouldn't be next to something else later. It's going to help keep each row on its own row. It keeps all those things together and keeps them grouped together. So we're going to need to include all 3 of these sections into a div called a row. Okay, and so I'm going to walk you through that right now. Starting here. So I'm going to want this section, this div, and this div to all be inside of another div called a row. All right? And so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to add a div. And this div is going to have a class of row. Okay? Class of row. I'm going to move this. Now, it starts getting a little fuzzy because it's like, well, we have all of these divs. How do I know where one starts and another one stops? Now, that's why brackets is really nice about highlighting things for us. Like if I click on this guy, I'm like, well, where does this start? I can see, well, now it's row, but really it's like the indentation level is with container. So this was my container. This is my section. My row needs to go in between them right here. And so this is actually a good example. Something that I recommend you do is every time you put a closing div tag, it might be a really good idea to put a comment. Like this is the container div. This is a row. You could put end container, end row. And then if you wanted to keep going, you could be even more specific, like this is end section 3. Oops. And you can copy and paste if you need to. That sometimes will help make your code a little bit more readable, and it will help you when you're adding in all of these divs to know where to start and where to stop. And so, again, something else that helps is the indentation levels. And so since all 3 of these sections are inside of the row, I'm going to highlight all these guys up until end row, and I'm going to tab them over. So now, okay, this div lines up with this div. This one lines up here, lines up there. Okay. So we have a container, Jumbotron, row, and then each row, this row has 3 different sections inside of it. And I have my ending div tags labeled to help differentiate them and keep them separate and keep them really, really clear. I really recommend you do that. It will help you out a lot. Okay, So that is my row. I have my row, and now I'm ready to actually look at what this page looks like. So I'm going to pull it up. Ba-ba-bum. And whoa, you can see now that I am on an extra large screen, and my section 1 is taking up 3 columns, just like I told it to. I'm going to skip and go all the way to small, extra small. So in extra small, it should be 12. When I get to small, it should jump to 6, and then 4, and then 3. So let's see. 12. Here it goes. 6. 4. And 3. Now heading 2 and heading 3, those sections were really doing wonky things while we were doing that, and that's just because we haven't given them their classes yet. And so we're about to do that, and we're about to fix it and make it look a lot better. But heading 1 did exactly what we told it to, so that was awesome. So now I'm going to go in and do heading 2 and heading 3. Something that might be a little bit more helpful is instead of going like doing all of one section at a time, like extra small, small, medium, and large, it's probably a better idea to do like one screen size at a time. So like let's do extra small for the remaining 2 sections. So I'm going to go to my section 2, my div here. I'm going to say, hey div, I'm going to give you a class of column, extra small, and 12. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm even going to copy paste to my section 3, column, extra small, 12. Okay. And then we can see that when it's extra small, those are going to be, they can go all the way across, although technically that's what they did by default at the first, so that's not that much difference. Okay, but let's do small. I'm going to do column, small, and on small, I want my second one to be 6 and my third one to be 12. So I'm going to do small is 6 and column small 12. And so now we can watch it. If I refresh this. This is my extra small. This 1, 2, 3. That's my small. So we have 6, 6, and 12. Very, very good. And then let's go to medium, 4, and 4. Column medium 4, column medium 4. Okay, refresh, and let's look. So when it gets to medium, there should be 4, 4, and 4, so all 3 should be on the same row. There they go, 4, 4, and 4. And then finally, let's look at our large. We have the second one should be 3, and the third one should be 6. So let's add that in. Column, large, 3. Column, large, 6. Alrighty, there we go. And so now when I refresh the page and make it large, my heading 3 got a little bit bigger. It's now taking up 6 columns. My heading 1 and 2 got a little smaller. They're taking up 3 each. Okay? And so that's it. We are done. We have our large screen layout, our medium screen layout. You saw that shift from one to the other. Okay? We have our small screen here, and our extra small screen here. And again, the extra small is fluid because it needs to accommodate lots of different cell phone screen sizes. Okay, ladies, and so thank you so much. Just to recap, when we're designing this, you're going to need to have a row that's a div with a class of row that surrounds your row of sections. And so that's why when we're looking at this, all 3 of these sections are in a div that's called a row. Okay, and so in the brackets, that's right here. Div row contains section 1, section 2, section 3. And then each section has its specific classes listed one after the other, separated by spaces, with extra small, small, medium, and large. Okay, and then one last detail, I recommend you indent things that are nested inside. So like since this div is inside of this div, we indented it over. Same with this guy and this guy. And then finally, you might add comments at the end of your ending div tags to make them a little bit more readable. But all of that being said, that's all there is to it. You create the row, you create the divs for each section and add those classes and according to your designs. And once you've done that, you have a fully responsive web page.